is a fireside chat on the topic transforming business outcomes, solutions to create value. And for this, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Neha Tyagi, who is the VP Business Development at 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗏. Giving a brief introduction for Neha, she is known for her solution focused mindset. She works with India corporates and multinationals to identify successful working capital strategies that uniquely accommodate their business objectives. She is well versed in bringing together cross functional stakeholders to achieve common ground and deliver strong business results. Prior to 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗏, she has worked in corporate banking in both credit and risk and relationship management roles at Kotak, HSBC, and State Bank of India. With this, please welcome Neha with a huge round of applause.
Um, so I think we've had very interesting sessions with Raj introducing 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗏. So I won't take too much time to introduce 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗏, who we are, what we do. I think he gave a great introduction. We also have a kiosk outside, and if there are any questions, we would love to answer and take you through more in terms of what we do. But as Raj had set up the context in the beginning, he asked a couple of questions for us to think about. And one of the questions was about transforming business outcomes. And then in the next session, Meenakshi very nicely put through a toolkit in terms of understanding how we should take the vision and transform that into action. So we thought it would be interesting for us to bring another perspective, another sort of successful case study, as I would say, in terms of how a business has been able to transform, transform business outcomes and how they have done that. So we thought that we should get one of the leading players in the retail space to come here and share their story. So I would like to invite Mr. 𝗧𝗿𝗄𝗏 who's the head treasury at 𝗲𝗏𝗏fashion and also happens to be an esteemed 𝗕𝗿𝗄𝗏 customer, to come here and share the story. So Ankit, welcome you on board.
Thank you, Neha.
So talking a little more about, the transformation story that Lifestyle has had, and of course, we'll hear more from Ankit in terms of what was their journey about, how did they go about it, what were their learnings, and what do they really want to kind of share with the team today. But it's been very interesting in terms of when we really talk about the business outcome. I think Lifestyle's done a great job in terms of how they've really built their business, how they've really looked at, it from different lenses of business, whether it is business departments or functions, whether it was finance, it was procurement, it was processes. And one of the critical business outcomes they were able to achieve was how they ensured that the way the business was getting transformed was resulting into a critical outcome of their credit rating getting enhanced. And how did they really do that? So, so without further ado, I would like to, ask my first question to Ankit. Ankit, what does transformation mean to you? And how do you think it is relevant towards creating value?
So thanks, Neha. I'm happy to share my thoughts with the audience. I think I'm not going to speak something different, but I think what I'm going to speak is out of the experience we all have shared at the landmark. I think transformation is a quite buzzword. We all know and we all have done it in our organization. Well, change is constant as well as rapid in today's world. Now with interconnectedness is a new norm, I think business has to adapt the changes in a dynamic world. And I think Meenakshi also touched upon that staying relevant is more important in all our organizations. How do we remain meaningful? And that's how the transformation comes in, the transformation kicks in. Now the way I look at it, transformation is nothing new. We all have done it in terms of the IT advancement, in terms of product advancement, in terms of customer enhancing the requirements, or in terms of people and culture. But what is more important to understand that this is something comes out of the threats. We all have been operating in an environment where there are multiple threats. Now, how do we address those threats? Now, there are operating environment where you have a customer acquisition threat, where you have a product obsolete threat, where you have a new technology advancement threat. And that's how the transformation kicks in. It gives you that where you are, you have to survive, you have to scale, and that you have to scalable. If you ensure that you will survive, you scale, and you scalable, that means you may be profitable for the organization. So that's how I look at transformation. And obviously the transformation is correlating to the value creation, because the all ecosystem we worked, right? We have to make sure that the kind of stakeholders we have, now be it the owners, promoters, the customers, the developers, the vendors, the entire ecosystem we have to work towards that. Now, how do we ensure that the transformation is meaningful for a partner like, say, owner of the company? How does the transformation makes different a customer life? Is he getting a better product? How a transformation in terms of the supply chain making a vendor life easy in terms of getting a finance? So that's how a transformation it looks like. Now, transformation can be, talked about on the advancement of AI, ML, robotics. We all have done it in our organization. But for me, transformation is all about creating a value for the stakeholder you worked. And that's the way transformation has been in existence and has continued to be relevant. One more aspect to the transformation is, if you didn't change yourself, you will not make meaningful, you will collapse. So with the advancement of time, right, every organization has to ensure that they will remain meaningful, they will continue relevant to their stakeholders.
No, aptly, very, very rightfully said in terms of being meaningful, very critical part of it. So Ankit, tell us that, as you thought about the transformation for lifestyle, as you defined your outcomes, how did you go about the process of executing it, planning it, and, if you can just, share that experience more specific to your own journey of the outcome that you were trying to achieve?
I think landmark story is more dependent on the values which we cater. So we believe that lead is something which we should strive for, and the lead stands for listen carefully, empower, constantly adapt, and carefully deliver. And that's what we strive for, and we have been doing for the last 20 years, and that goes into each and every DNA of Landmarker. And we believe seriously that transformation is something, which is required to ensure that you remain, critical for stakeholders. Now, look at the way 2-3 years back when COVID struck, we were unsure how do we, make meaningful to our lives. We were having no clues that how do we going to survive. But despite of all the bad times and, we navigate, we survive, and we today are sellable. So the important thing is that, focus on the areas which is relevant to your stakeholders. I would also like to add upon one important aspect, and this is our, talks about founder chairman. He always keep on telling that, create an exceptional value for the life we touch. And that's how the meaning comes to your purpose. So look at this matter that if you are going to change, a product, is it really going to make a change in the customer life? So look at the requirements, look at the feedback of customer, look at the requirement of vendor. And that's how you create the advancement in terms of your transformation of your, entire organization journey. So that is a key aspect. In terms of planning, in terms of, executing the entire transformation, I feel it's a top to bottom down approach, right? We have to see where we are and where we are heading towards. And now how do we bridge this gap? Because if we didn't change ourselves with the, changing times, I think it is going to be irrelevant for all of us. And that's how the planning goes in. We believe that each and every stakeholders find ourselves relevant over the period of time. So that's a broad planning we did it. And it's a journey, it is a continuous journey, continuous learning for all of us to become relevant to all of our stakeholders. To add one more aspect to this, the execution is always a challenge. Whenever you try to change something in your organization, you will find resistance. And that is where the culture kicks in, right? So you have to ensure that you have a right set of people, right set of product, right set of processes. If you have this combination of people, product, and processes, the transformation will be easy to navigate over the period of time.
No, absolutely, I think wonderfully said. And, I think you touched upon 3 critical aspects, which you said, the suppliers, or rather, the product which comes from the suppliers, there is people, and there is also the processes, right? So can you give us some examples in terms of the challenges you faced and how did you overcome in each of these aspects? Any interesting experiences that you would want to share?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share the, the live experience which we all have done it. The March 20, we all of us remember, the overnight the COVID struck in and we were unsure how do we manage the entire, systems. The stores were closed, the revenue was completely, forgotten. And overnight we have to manage the vendor payments, we have to ensure the liquidity remains in, we have to ensure that the employee is motivated, we have to engage with our customers. And that's how we, carve out a plan where we are going to work it out during the COVID. So we did a cash tower. And it's not a new thing, we all must have done it. But what we did differently, we realized that who are the key stakeholders. So we realized that one of the key stakeholders is the vendor who is supplying the merchandise. We reach out to them. We give them confidence. We ensure that we remain, committed towards their buying pattern. We remain committed towards payments. The second critical pillar of the retail is employee. We ensure that we remain committed towards them in ensuring the, all kind of coverages in the difficult times. The third critical pillar is the developer, where we ensure that, in difficult times, they will not be, we will not let them go. So it's a continuous, culmination of the thought process where the employees, where the, vendors, developers has been talked about and find out a solution. And that's how we are able to survive, and we have been doing fabulously good.
Oh, fantastic. And, talking a little bit more in terms of your suppliers, as 𝗬𝗿𝗏 as an organization, we are very, very passionate about serving suppliers. So coming a little more to your suppliers, how did you make this transformation process more inclusive? Because transformation alone for the organization cannot be successful until you get your ecosystem into play as well, right? And suppliers are a critical part of that ecosystem. So can you, tell us in terms of how did you ensure that you were taking the suppliers together in this entire journey of growth or transformation that you were taking, and also ensuring that their financial health was being taken care of? So any measures, any actions that you took from that perspective?
I think this is something we have been doing for almost a decade. We have been ensuring that all the requirements of the vendors are being met. Now, how do we ensure that, we give them a platform to ensure that it will remain liquid? Now, obviously, the vendor in the segment we operate is quite, fragmented in terms of the small and large vendors, and the vendors' requirement keep on changing over the period of time. And how do we, ensure that the liquidity will be a key aspect for the smaller vendors? So we have ensured that, you are aware that before the 𝗬𝗏𝗏 comes in, in the landmark ecosystem, we were doing this entire program of managing the liquidity for the vendors internally. But what we did differently than while we onboard 𝗬𝗏𝗏, we realized that there is a lot better way of doing it. And that's the extension of what we were doing earlier in a manual way, and now we are doing automated way. Other than this, we also ensure that partnership with a vendor will become more meaningful. In terms of that, while we onboard a vendor, there is a checklist. Now, it's not easy to onboard any partner or any vendor for a landmark. So we ensure that the partner, the vendor will into the business for some time. There's a vintage. There is a, exceptional thing which he is going to create in terms of the sell-through, his deliveries on time. So all those, broad checklists goes on, onboarding a partner, and that's how we ensure that the partner remain committed to us and we remain committed to, the partner, because it's a two-way traffic.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And while COVID gave us a lesson that in a tightened economy, you have to tighten the processes, right? Which we all did it. But we ensure that we remain, always we extend liquidity to partners, and that's what we make a difference in the partner's life.
No, absolutely, very interesting. Now, touching on another aspect, which is customer. I mean, the segment that you cater to, the customer needs are so dynamic, right? I mean, the inventory turnover that you have to do. So what are the interesting things that you're doing from that perspective to maybe stay a little ahead in terms of understanding your customer needs better and using that transformative approach to also inculcate that processes into your setup, right?
So I would like to take all of you a decade back. I mean, look at the payment kind of approach which we were having. We all used to make payment through cash. Now cash has evolved to card. Card has become a wallet has become a QR. And now we are talking of a voice pay or a facial recognition. So that's the kind of evolvement we all have seen in the payment approach. Similarly, the customer is now being a quite, the expectation of customer is quite large. And if you didn't hear your customer, I think you will be vanished from the business what you do. So it's important, you keep on getting a right feedback, and you keep on, implementing those feedbacks into the actionables. And that is where making a difference. Now, look at the time zone. I mean, we all have been grown seeing the 60 over match to 50 over to 20 overs. So times are very quick. Everyone wants a very quick result. And that is where it is going to make a difference. How adaptive you are in terms of transformation to make the requirement of your vendor, customer, or developer. I think that is a very key aspect for all of us to understand that the times are, not going to come back. And how do we address those requirements in a very quick frame? Maybe we will split the requirements into short term and long term and medium term and address those requirements of all of our partners' ecosystem, and that is make more meaningful.
Interesting. And touching upon the third critical aspect, which is people. So I remember we were having one of the conversations. He said that really kind of investing in people and ensuring the talent is coming up and they are fully adept to upskilling. All these are important aspects. Even Meenakshi touched upon that. So can you take us through how Landmark as an organization has invested in its people, ensuring the upskilling and ensuring the right talent is in place as a part of this transformation journey as well?
So let me quickly give you what I feel The retail is all depending on the four key aspects. One is product, which comes from the vendor. The second aspect is place, which comes from the developer. The third aspect is a price, which is the employee, as a cost. And if you make sure that the product, price, and place is fabulously well placed, we will definitely get profit. Now, how do we empower your employees? That very critical aspect, because the front end staff, you look at it, they have been worked tirelessly, from morning 9 to late night 11 p.m. It's quite difficult. The entire retail system is difficult. So how do you empower? How do you ensure that they will remain engaged with the mindset? And that's what we're continuously investing. During the COVID times, we ensured that every employee has been a right cover in terms of insurance and medical facilities. We launched our landmark structure program, and we continuously invest on the advancement in terms of their skill. So how do we upskill the employees in a timely manner? And that is where you're going to make a difference. Now, Landmark is no different to the, in terms of the advancement. I think all organizations did it. Meenakshi will also been touching upon that. How do we, skill the right set of people? The more important aspect is that keep upskilling your manpower, but make meaningful to the customer. Because at the end of the day, it's customer who's going to, come to your store and make more money for you. So let the employee focus on the customer, and that's what makes you the money.
Yeah, underlying is customer is king, so that's definitely very important. Ankit, so we've talked about the three critical aspects. There's also, when you're going through a transformation journey, it's not just it's multifunctional, right? So how did you take the different functional stakeholders together, and what do you think are the key learnings that came out of this? So as you share your experience with the audience, what were the top 3 learnings for you as you look at multifunctional transformations which are being done, and how can you make them more successful and more meaningful as you go through the journey?
I think I will share the recent one, what we have learned out of the COVID, and I think all of us must have read somewhere. The top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, and cash is reality, and that's what a CFO should work upon. That's the biggest learning and outcome which all have seen in the last 3 years, and I think Meenakshi was also touching upon that. Keep things simple. So how do we make sure that we remain, advancement in terms of the product, in terms of the systems, but how do we at the time ensure that we remain simple in terms of the overall approach, and that is where going to make a difference. Also, we realize that any advancement, if it is not going to create a solution. So for example, we have seen there are people in the organization, there are external consultants who try to find a solution for the problem which never exists. And we all know what happened to those guys. They cease to exist. So it is important to find a solution for the problem which actually exists and which will make a change in the life of the customer, vendor, or developer. Apart from this, I would also like to share that we did a lot of changes on our front end. For example, I remember 3 years back, the RBI comes in that overnight they issue a circular and they share that you have to ensure that each and every store of yours will be a UPI enabled. Now it is difficult for a large formal retail like Landmark to ensure that 700 stores plus will accepting a UPI. And we realized that we required a cooperation, collaboration, coordination of all stakeholders, right from the IT, operations, front end. And what we did differently is we put a timeline. When you have a timeline, you know where you are and where you have to reach and how you bridge it, and that is where it makes a difference. And at the end of the day, we realized that next 45 days, we ensured that all 7 stores of Landmark is UPI enabled. And that's a pure coordination, collaboration, I think, with, across all the teams.
No, I think, that's a great example in terms of how, you demonstrated that. But, transformation is not just a one activity, right? I think it's a constant thing with the kind of dynamic world that we're living in. Transformation will keep happening. So as you think about that, what would be your suggestions in terms of thinking on transformation more from a short to medium to long term, right? How do you keep planning for it so the organization is always prepared for, different aspects, as I said, from a short, medium to a long term perspective?
See, successful growth transformation has to be split. And I think, as you rightly said, we should have some kind of short term, medium term, long term. And I will say that if you split into these 3 categories and you start doing the low-hanging fruits into a quick wins, you realize that it will boost your confidence, morale, and will give you the further, kind of advancement to do a larger things. Because small things are manageable too, it's better to manage small things in a, right framework. For us, if you look at it, the learning in terms of short term, I mean, while I was been talking about cash tower, we ensured that where the money comes in, where the money goes out, right? Why the money going in, why the money goes out, in what matter is going out. So if you keep on focusing on these 4 or 5 aspects, right, and start building your approaches on short term, medium term, you realize that as a CFO, you should have the complete visibility and dashboard where your money is stuck in. So for example, start focusing on, or entire kind of AR and the advances, you realize that it is going to make a meaningful. On a long term and medium term, I would say that the requirements are now keep on changing.
Sure,
the
absolutely.
organizations are evolving and they're realizing that long term, kind of values are taking time to reach there. So all of us been making a short term goals and then advancing to the medium term, and I think addressing to the broad way. I mean, also I would like to share that when I joined this organization almost a decade back, this organization was a triple B in rating. Now we are AA plus. This is purely a transformation, and this would not be possible without support of the entire ecosystem. So what is I'm trying to highlight that make your goals, but make it meaningful, make it relevant to entire ecosystem, then only it's going to be successful journey for all of us.
Absolutely, very, very well concluded on that front, Ankit. My last question to you is that, as a thought leader, as a head treasury who's, seen transformation through decades, what are your sort of top 3 message to our audience, more from an individual as well as a leader, in this space?
I think keep the thing simple. That's a very important aspect in any transformation. Keep it a timely proposition. And third thing, keep it high in terms of value creation. Because if you are been advancing any kind of solution which is not going to make a meaningful change in life of your stakeholders, I think no one is going to appreciate. So keep these things on top of it and you will find your relevance in organization.
No, absolutely. I think keeping things simple is the underlying mantra, which of course, Meenakshi spoke about, you spoke about. So that's interesting. So with that, we come to an end to this very interesting conversation. So thank you so much, Ankit, for sharing all those learnings. I would open it up to the audience in case there are any questions for Ankit. We'll be very happy to answer.
Yes, we are open for questions.
I think there's a question there.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
This is 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗀 from 𝗕𝗏𝗀𝗀 Group. So I know transformation is talked about and kind of the term is abused now, right, to an extent. So how much of the transformation in reality is proactive versus reactive as you observe the landscape of the CFO offices?
Thanks, Prashant. As I say a few minutes back, I will again reiterate that transformation is a journey. And I think all of us at some point of time would embark upon because it's a need of the hour. So if you didn't do it, I mean, you will not survive. You will collapse your system, your organization, your people. And that's how we find a reality, we find a meaningful approach towards transformation. Now, be it in your own sphere, you will realize that a transformation is an advancement in terms of reaching where you are and what you want to achieve. And that's how it has to be a more proactive kind of approach. The moment it will become reactive, I think the time will not be there to survive. So it is more important to be proactive in terms of the approach. So at least you will remain survive, you will remain scalable and sellable. That's what I feel though.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Hey, this is Anirban. See, transformation, if it's a large-scale one, it will involve multiple players from an organization. You'll have IT, you'll have business, you'll have so many functions getting involved. So who takes the lead? And what's been the success that you've seen? Whether it is IT who leads it, whether it is the functions, do you bring in a third party to manage the process? What's been your journey in that area?
I think each and everyone should understand the role they are playing in the organization. So it's not an individual who is going to make a difference. It's I think, culmination of the efforts of all functions put together, which makes a difference in the organization. To give you a perspective, I realized that while we were doing a lot of changes in terms of the, for example, we built in the RPA kind of thing, right? So there were timelines which we supposed to, cater, and there was a dedicated team as well who has been handling this. But we missed the timelines. And the obvious reason is that there is a lack of, understanding what we are trying to achieve. So when there is a lack of understanding, the times will cease to exist. And that is how it's more important that you define what you want. Very specifically, very categorically, your entire landscape has to be defined. And that's how the people will continue to, adapt those things and reach where you are. So that is something which is more meaningful.
And I think it also kind of gives a lot of ownership, right? So when you kind of create that path, then there is ownership to it. And then as each owner kind of drives and starts collaborating and contributing, it kind of gets to the final outcome as well.
It has to become within itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions? Great, thank you so much, Ankit.
Thank you,
thanks
Neha.
a ton.
Thank you, everyone.